Hi, folks. We are here for another episode of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. I'm going to do my best to continue this with as much of a leadership emphasis and an emphasis on current events at the same time, because I think it's relevant to what's going on in our world today. Because I'm watching, part of the reason why I'm so alarmed with our world and some of the things that are taking place right now is because I'm watching people use Saul Alinsky to the hilt, they are leveraging it with everything they have, and I find it both intellectually fascinating and absolutely just scary. So here we go. This will be the next quote, and it will continue along the lines. It's in the same few paragraphs dealing with revolutionary organizers. You remember last time the goal of a revolutionary organizer, a leader, was to agitate, disenchant, and create discontentment with the current values. It's one thing is it's good to know that values are made up of the aggregate beliefs. They're the outgrowth of beliefs. So when you're trying to get people to change their values, if you can start challenging their beliefs, then you can more easily destroy their values, and their culture will fall as soon as you get their values out of the way. So here, I'm going to read it to you, and there's a specific word, reformation, and I'm going to read that word as a reformation, not just reformation. And the reason I want to say reformation is just so that we understand that what is going on here is we are trying to reform something, not just. A lot of people, when they hear the word reformation, they have a lot of like church context, and they think about everything that's going on, and they don't necessarily understand that what was happening was a reforming. And so I want that to be very clear in this quote. It says, a reformation means that masses of our people have reached the point of disillusionment with the past ways and values. They don't know what will work, but they do know that the prevailing system is self-defeating, frustrating, and hopeless. They won't act for change, but won't strongly oppose those who do. This is then the right time for revolution. The time is then ripe for revolution. So the goal here in Alinsky's method is to spread disillusionment with a system, which is very easy. We went over this last week. To not just get rid of, but to create disillusionment with any system that is man-made. All you have to do is examine it. People have to have high hopes for that system. They have to believe in that system, and then all you have to do is show them all of the places where the system has failed, and not really talk about what the good that has happened, and people will end up with a feeling of disillusionment. I've experienced disillusionment in my life before. It's a very caustic, acidic, negative emotion that tends to spread rapidly. And here's the thing. The goal of Alinsky here is to get people to understand that you might not know what works, but those people over there are trying something, so why not just let them? Why not resist? Or why resist them? That's a lot of work. Just let them try it and see what happens. Might be better, right? That's the goal. So when you're practicing Alinsky, and we're seeing this everywhere, with people calling, instead of calling for Like there's a big police push today. So instead of calling for better training, teaching, things like that they just want to get rid of police, which, I mean, common sense will tell you that leads to chaos, right? Which, if you're an Alinskyite, chaos is what you're after. If you can create enough chaos, you can seize enough power, and you can get through anything you want to. Alinsky relies on mob rule. Alinsky relies on people impassioned without reason. Alinsky doesn't want you to sit down and think. Alinsky wants you to feel, right? And we see this in Christianity to some degree with emotionalism and preaching, right? Sometimes, a sermon might be out of context or not quite biblical, but if we can get everybody emotionally pulled into it, well then, hey, what was the harm, right? Which I tend to stand against. I think everything needs to be processed properly. But leaders' goals using Alinsky is to just get people frustrated. They need to believe that the system can't work for them. And then you know that the time is right for revolution. So right now, I do see one of the major problems is that the far left has not consistently... it's hard in America to put out a consistent message of that the system is self-defeating, because we have such fluid social mobility. You can be in the bottom 10% one year and the top 10% the next if you apply yourself properly. You can come from a long history of poverty, and you can find yourself in the middle class. Literally, there's 5 things, regardless of race or anything else, that you can do. And I forget all of them, but it's like not have a baby out of wedlock, finish high school, get married, wait till you're 25 to have kids, things like that. And I think there's like a 98 percentile. It's like 98% chances that you'll be at least in the middle class, right? That's it. Just high school, right? All you had to do is finish high school, not have a baby out of wedlock, get married, and then have a baby at 25, onward. Little things. And I studied this because I was trying to deal with some of the problems that conservative Christian culture has with falling behind financially and as far as wealth goes. Conservative Christians are some of the poorest groups in the United States. And the numbers and the statistics on this is just fascinating, because conservative Christians often start off their adult life slightly in a better position than other groups, other cultures. And then as time progresses, they build wealth so slowly that everybody passes them. And so to me, that was fascinating, because conservative Christianity is people of every stripe, every creed, every nationality. The one thing they have in common is their belief system, their culture. And so that's what I began to dig into. And so I found some fascinating research on that, because people have gone out there and noticed this and looked into it. And so anyway, I'm way off the subject here of Alinsky. But as Christian leaders, we need to understand that there are times when a system is broken, and we need to point to it and say the system is broken, we need to fix it. You have to be very careful. It is easy to be able to whip people up into it's broken, let's just do whatever to fix it. That's problematic, because as Christians, we're supposed to walk circumspect. We're supposed to make sure that we know what's going on around us, and that our next step is as sure as it can be. When we get hasty is when we start making mistakes. And a lot of times I say that when you do things too quickly, you make lots and lots of room for the devil. What I mean by the devil is not necessarily, the little red man with a pitchfork. I mean chaos. I mean bad decisions. I mean bad attitudes when the change worked out poorly. Because here's the thing, when you finally push people towards a revolution, the masses have one revolution in their system. They've got one revolution that they can go through fairly well. They usually don't have two. So if you go and you try to create chaos and disillusionment and frustration and hopelessness, and you just slap something together and it doesn't work out. So you can see this in the French Revolution. They had this absolutely bloody and chaotic revolution where they stripped God away from everything, which normally happens, right? But they stripped God away from everything. They tried their new 100% secular everything, and it fell apart. And people were just massacred and butchered and butchered. And, the people who started the revolution are all usually the first people to get beheaded. Think about that. When the revolution, the people who start the revolution rarely are the ones who finish it. And then finally, Napoleon was the one who stepped up and became the dictator, the emperor. This happens regularly.